say.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Like now, see? Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this month's edition of Artist Alchemy. We're here today with author Alyanna Poe. We'll be talking to her in just a moment. But I always like to remind us, what does alchemy mean anyway? It's this old medieval pseudoscience, which kind of spoke to the issue of taking everyday things and turning them into gold, which is, I like to say, kind of like what artists do, creating that magic that makes it happen. So, Alyanna, great to see you. Great to finally meet you.
Yeah, great to meet you too. I know we've been talking for a while about doing this interview.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so excited, and we love to support local artists, and we love to kind of share with the community when we meet artists in our midst that we didn't even know were here. It turns out you live just down the street from me here in Plumas Lake. So this bastion of art and culture here in South Yuba County. So you're an author, podcast host. You've self-published 4 books and counting, I think. So, but just as a way of introduction, talk about doing what you've been doing the last couple of years. We're kind of coming out of COVID, but maybe not. But I mean, how's COVID impacted your life? I mean, did it impact your life?
I don't have a regular job. I just do writing. So in terms of my writing, I was able to just hole up and write,
Good.
But the problem was I wanted to start going to bookstores and libraries and start doing, readings and signings and stuff. And then it all just stopped. Like I literally just started the process of getting into a bookstore and then COVID hit. And I was like, oh, okay. So that all halted. With my next book, I'm hoping to get out there more as regulations and stuff are lifted.
Now, what's your go-to bookstore?
I actually like going to the Habitat for Humanity and getting used books, but I used to go.
Oh, wow. I forgot about that. They've got a good section, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah. I used to go to Gotta Love Books a lot, but that's a drive out to Yuba City.
Yeah, I know. It's not that far. But when I first moved to town 13 years ago, there was a great bookstore in downtown Marysville, right on D Street, across from the Brick, and it closed just after I moved here. But I know it's hard. I was actually in a Barnes and Noble recently. I was back east in Virginia visiting my son and his family, and I hadn't been in a bookstore in a while. I was like, I'm kind of ashamed to admit that, but it was really neat. I sat there. I had some time to spend while they were doing some other things. So good for you for getting out to bookstores. What library do you go to?
I used to go to the one in Sutter. I can't remember what it's called.
I haven't been in that one. That's part of the Sutter County system. James Oxner, the librarian's a good friend. And I know they have the one in Live Oak, and then there's, of course, the main branch in Yuba City. If you haven't been in Yuba City since they remodeled, go check it out. It's pretty neat. Then, of course, Yuba County and Marysville has a great library as well. All right, I should have done this very first thing. Let's start with an obvious question. Are you in some way related to Edgar Allan Poe?
Yeah, he's my first cousin 6 times removed. So
really?
Yes, so we share a grandpa. I only recently found it out because my dad's lineage was really hard to trace. My mom did all the research and all the digging, and she finally linked us through one person, and the rest of it, that was the missing link,
Oh my gosh, is that cool? I mean,
yeah, and technically, if I had been born in the 1800s, I would have been his first cousin, and he married his first cousin.
Yeah, so, that's right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
He didn't have any kids, so a lot of people think, oh, he doesn't have, descendants, which he doesn't have descendants, but he technically does have relatives. Yeah.
Other family, yeah.
So there's a lot of us spread out. Like there's still people who live in Virginia, a lot of people, along the East Coast. I ended up all the way on the West Coast. So.
Jay. Oh, that's wild. I love that. I lived in Maryland for many years, and Baltimore. I wasn't far from Baltimore, and there was that Poe connection as well. And there was a mysterious stranger who every year would go to his gravesite. I think he's buried in Baltimore. I forget the name of the cemetery. And he would, I think it was on his birthday, he would leave a rose and either a bottle or a glass of brandy, which I guess was one of his favorites. I mean, people claimed they kept this thing going for years. They said they didn't know who it was. I suspect somebody did, but I think he finally, I don't know what happened, but I don't think he's done it the last few years. So, but great fun. I mean, I love Edgar Allan Poe and read a lot of it growing up. And I had a friend who had a complete set of everything he ever wrote. I mean, the essays, because he was a great essayist. I think critical essays, kind of a book reviewer, and just really, really prolific guy. Anyway, you know all that. Um, so are you from here originally? Were you born in California, Northern California?
I was born in Vallejo, and then I grew up in Woodland. And then when I was 12, we moved here to Plumas Lake.
Okay, you came here on purpose, right? Like me.
We had planned on moving Rockland, I think, and then the realtor was like, "Oh, hey, there's this place," and we were like, "Oh, this is actually a nice area."
The place that time forgot or something. But hey, there's
Yeah,
movement. We've got Costco coming in down the road, and of course the
yeah.
Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, and so there's signs of life. We'll get a grocery store eventually, right? Oh, that
So
seems.
we're probably gonna get another gas station.
Oh my gosh, I know, right? That's just anyway, local stuff that may not interest our general viewers, but yeah, that's a thing. So horror. I mean, what inspired you to start working in that genre? I assume, was it life experiences? Was it your famous relative, or how'd you get into horror writing?
Edgar Allan Poe's always been a huge influence. I don't like to compare my writing to his. Obviously, I write a really different style, but obviously, huge influence. And then I've always loved Halloween.
Ah,
And then it just steadily, like, I would read Halloween books as a kid, and then when I was 13, I got The Stand by Stephen King, and I started reading that, and I haven't looked back. I mean, I just really enjoy the horror genre.
okay. Do you like horror movies
Yeah.
as well? I mean, the whole package, right? Yeah. I jump. I'm so easily frightened. The movies. I'm that guy that screams and whatever. Have you tried other genres?
I tried to write a young adult romance probably about a year ago, and then I wanted to turn the main character into a werewolf, and I was like, I don't think I'll be able to stray from the genre very far.
Oh my gosh.
I have a sci-fi manuscript, but it's also got horror in it. I need to
Yeah.
work on that. But yeah.
I like those
So
mashups though of genres sometimes. Those can be kind of fun.
yeah.
Yeah, all right. So that's something to consider for the future. What about other mediums of literature? Do you do poetry as well? Short stories?
I don't write as much poetry as I probably should, having my last name. It's not like my forte.
Yeah.
But I've been working on it. I'd like to do a collection soon. Just steadily grow a collection of poems and publish it myself. Um,
Sure.
I enjoy short stories. I like to submit to different publishers and stuff. And obviously, I have 2 collections of short stories and then my 2 novels. So for the most part, I like long form stories. I like putting in the time and effort into a long story and plotting it out. And,
Okay.
it makes me sad when I finish stories. Like other people are like, "Oh, I can't wait to finish my book," and it's like it's kind of sad. You end there. It's like when you finish a good book, your time with the characters is done.
Well, or you do a sequel like you did with Eaton, right?
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go. Bring them back. You know. Oh, I love it. I love it. I mean, how many projects are you planning out ahead at any given time? Do you have a whole wall full of notes? Hey, how about this idea? I mean, is that
I have my whiteboard back there.
okay? All right.
Yeah.
Right, so,
So right now I'm working on my birthday anthology. So I do like short stories every year on my birthday.
oh
And
wow.
I do it the number, like my age. So Cradles of the Brain is 20, Rejects was 21, and Out of My Mind is going to be 22. So when I'm not working on the podcast, I try to work on that.
Okay.
I'm working on the podcast, obviously, and then I'm publishing Adam's Murder, which pre-order actually started today for that.
I thought I saw that when I was doing my research. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
And
the
that's
poetry.
pre-ordered directly through your website or through Amazon or both or where?
So right now, I'm doing pre-order through my website for signed copies.
Okay.
I'm still working with my publisher to get ebook. That's my website. To get ebooks ready for pre-order. So that'll
Okay.
probably be a separate date. I'm using Ingram Spark, which is different than my usual publisher. I usually use Amazon, and it's just taking a little more for processing.
Okay.
Um,
Well, that's interesting. In fact, tell us about that because I've never really explored it. How does that work with Amazon? Do they literally publish the book if they accept it?
Well, you don't really have to go through a process in terms of content. A lot of people do honestly, they do low form or low content books. So you could do lined paper inside of a book and publish it that way, which, I mean, that's something, I guess, if you want a notebook or something. But
Yeah.
for me, I design all the covers. I format the
Really?
interior of the book. Yeah. So you have to do it all yourself before you can ask Amazon. So you just, essentially, it's just a platform. So I upload the manuscript, I upload the cover, all the details, I select the publication date, and then they just do it. And then when I make a sale, they take a cut. So
Okay.
that's how they kind of make
Sure.
their money for it. And
So
as
if
long
I order a book on Amazon, I'm going to get a published, a bound
as,
volume, copy of Eaton or Void, or yeah, just like a book. Okay.
yeah,
That's amazing. I didn't realize that's how it worked with them.
they do hardcovers now too, which is, when I first started publishing, I had to go through Barnes and Noble to do hardcovers,
Okay.
and it was quite the process. It was a lot different than Amazon. I've used a couple different publishing platforms, and in terms of free ones, I like Amazon the most.
Okay.
They do take a cut, but there's no upfront, like you don't have to pay upfront.
This is fascinating. I mean, you're like such a seasoned pro. That's such
Oh,
amazing.
it'll be on Halloween. It'll be 3 years since I first published my first book.
Wow, man, you're prolific, and obviously you got a lot to share, a lot of stories to tell. I really admire your. I have a note about this later in the interview, but your entrepreneurship,
Thank you.
is impressive. As a longtime business guy and sales and marketing is sort of my game, and it's phenomenal. And you've covered the bases. It sounds like.
It's definitely hard saying about like entrepreneurship. It's hard because there will be a month or two that you don't make a sale no matter how much you market.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just you have to keep pushing and going. I'm just thankful that my parents are so supportive
Wow.
and that they let me, do what I'm doing. And I hope, I queried an agent recently for a manuscript, and I'm hoping to at least get a publisher and get that bonus. That's
Yeah.
the most money I've seen from
Oh,
writing. I love what I do, but I'd also like it to be my career and my
yeah,
income.
sure. Well, once you get that first big film deal, then you'll have that residual income tucked away to see you through the thin times. No, that's amazing. I just love hearing about that. We're gonna have to come up with some kind of parent award for parents known for supporting their artist children. I deserve one. But obviously your parents do as well, and some other folks that we know, young artists across all the genres, and we need to recognize those parents who don't say, "Oh, go out and get a real job." That's like no, that's a special type of person. So kudos to them. Give them my best. You want to just touch on the books again real quick, the sequence. I know they're on Amazon. Eaton, Cradles the Brain, Void, Rejects. Just kind of run us through the different titles.
All right, so Eden was my first title, and when I was a kid, even to this day, I guess associated with OCD, there's a picking disorder where you just kind of, if you have acne, it's like, oh my God, and you freak out about it. And so when I was a kid, the doctors terrified me. They were like, you're going to get an infection and you could die. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm still here.
Yeah, right.
But it inspired the idea that my picking could cause the apocalypse. So when I was 14, I came up with the idea and I started plotting it. And then, from 14 to 18 is when I wrote it. And then
Wow.
I queried for like 6 months and nobody wanted it. And then I was in contact with a small publisher, and he was like, here's some good constructive criticism. And I finally fixed the manuscript because no agent will give you criticism for free. They just don't have time.
Okay.
But I finally fixed it, and he encouraged me to publish myself. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. So I finally did. And I'm glad that I did because I've gotten a good amount of readers, just from that book. And I've made a lot of friends through it as well. And it was just the opening of all the other books.
Okay. So you did it. You got her done. And what's next? So after Eaton came
Void. Void is the sequel. It's actually about a different character, but within somewhat of the same timeline.
Okay.
So it's sort of a different perspective. I can't give away too much, but yeah, it's about a survivor of the apocalypse. And it's a lot darker, I think. Like Eden is very gory, and that's why I used the red cover. And then Void is very dark, and that's why I left it kind of black and white, a gray cover, because it's more psychological than gore.
I love that you do the cover art as well, because I think I saw on your Facebook profile that you're a digital creator. So I didn't realize you actually were creating that artwork.
Yeah, that's actually a stuffed rabbit that I've had since I was a baby.
Oh
I have a picture, and I'm like a year old standing next to it, and now it's become my horror cover.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
Well, that's okay, you know.
Yeah. So Cradles the Brain, I had all this content on my website. I was posting short stories and stuff, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna edit them. I'm gonna, add extra content and publish it into a book. And that's what I did. And I wanted to do 20 because my birthday, I was turning 20.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? If it's an anthology for me, I'm gonna put me on the cover. So I took a picture, and I actually did the editing and everything for that. But yeah.
Love it. Yeah, I love your photographs. The
Thank
one
you.
that we showed a bit ago with the eyeball in your mouth, and
Yeah.
Did you do all those self portraits, or do you have a photographer? Or?
No, I do self-portrait. That's all with my phone. I have a phone. I use a timer. 10-second timer. You got to run.
Yeah, right.
Pose. Yeah.
Know it well.
Yeah. Rejects was my. Wanted to do another anthology, and then I was like, you know what? I'll publish it on my birthday again. I'll make this a yearly tradition, and then it's all rejected fiction. Actually, that summer of 2022 or 2021.
Yeah.
I wanted to publish through all these publishers. I started writing short stories for all these publishers, and I just kept getting rejections. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna publish it in my own book. So that's what I ended up doing. And the only thing I needed to buy for that cover was actually a black backdrop. So it was late at night. I strung up this backdrop, and then I used the timer. And I ended up not liking any of the photos, but I had taken a video while doing it, so that way I could post like a video of me making the cover.
Sure.
And I posed a couple times on the video, and that's actually the image I selected, and versus any of the photos I took. Yeah. And then all the faces on the ground, I was actually on the ground, like crouching, like trying to get the pose right, so that way the lighting was correct. So there's a lot more, I could have just gotten stock images and edited them together, but I like doing the photography part as well, because it helps when you can control the lighting and then go into editing. That way you don't have to change any of that digitally. It's just a lot easier to do it yourself.
Less work on the post-production. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a lot of fun too. I was out there having fun trying to pose and everything.
There it is. Oh yeah. Oh, that's great. Oh man. Love it.
What was that? Sorry.
I love it. No, they're going to have an art show in one of our galleries with some of your visual art.
Thank you. With Adam's Murder, I decided to go a different route. So I painted it, and then I edited it digitally, so that way it was, integrated into the cover.
Well, talk about that project, because I think isn't there more to it? Is it with your podcast? You've serialized it, haven't you? You're kind of reading chapters from Adam's Murder.
Yeah, with Indicted Fiction, I started watching Only Murders in the Building, and I realized, wow, there's a huge fan base for like true crime horror. And I didn't want to just do like true crime. I wanted to do fictional crime.
Okay.
I wanted to name it the Untrue Crime Podcast, but somebody already had that name.
Oh, did they? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Indicted Fiction became the name, and I was trying to brainstorm different ideas for something that would be entertaining. It would be easy to listen to. Sometimes it's awkward listening to like a third-person narrative, somebody reading a story to you.
Sure.
So I made it first person, and it's the audio diary of a girl investigating the murder of her brother. So it's sort of like a fictional true crime. She's digging for clues and talking about it, and she keeps the audio diary just to keep her thoughts straight. And I tried to keep the character as natural as possible.
Okay.
It's different than writing a third-person narrative, because it's not a dialogue, but a monologue. She's talking, and I didn't want it to come across robotic. So a lot of times while writing it, I was talking myself. I was talking into my phone. so that
I
won't
was
be
going to
the
say, is
problem.
that, yeah, that's an interesting technique. Okay, so you're
Yeah.
narrating it to yourself, and then you'll transcribe it later.
Well, I use speech to text, so
Oh,
it
it
does
does
it
some of
automatically.
all that
Yeah.
fancy stuff that I don't know about. Okay, well, I'll remember that. I'll have to look at
Yeah.
it.
And that, I mean, I would get, 1,500 words down a night and,
Wow,
you know,
sounds very efficient.
yeah. So, I would read it and then in order to edit it, I actually read it out loud a second time.
Okay.
And then now I'm narrating it a third, I'm talking a third time through it. So I feel like I'm fully immersed in the
Yeah.
character by now,
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
able to play her
It
well
sounds so great on your podcast, the readings that you've shared. I mean,
Thank you.
it's amazing. Well, and so it's not based on a true story. Is that true?
So no, it's not based on a true story. I did lose my brother in 2020.
Oh,
So
I'm
I
sorry.
was able. Oh, yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
I was able to work through a lot of grief and guilt through the story. Like I've never actually cried so much while writing something. And then you'll notice sometimes it kind of sounds like the character's crying on the podcast, and it's because some of the things are things I would have liked to have said to him.
Mm.
And so it's real. And all I can hope for with the podcast and the book is that I can help somebody else work through their own grief, because it helped me tremendously. Like I lived for a year, with all these pent up feelings about it, and writing about a fictional version, really helped.
Yeah, processing your grief that way. Wow, like artists kind of do that, right? A lot of
Yeah.
times. Yeah. Well, it's fascinating the idea of what'd you call it, the fiction based on real crime,
Oh,
serial
the untrue crime.
untrue crime. Yeah.
Yeah.
And while you were describing that, I had to let me just share. Hemingway did an experiment back in the 30s, trying to turn a real life event into fiction. His book Green Hills of Africa followed his first safari to Africa. This is way off base, but his whole premise was to take some of these real events and but retell it as a totally fictional account. And then Short Happy Life of Francis Macomber was kind of part of that. That's another extreme short story, but anyway, I got a little bit of a vibe of that when you were describing your process for Adam's murder. So great stuff. Thanks for sharing that with us. You want to read something?
If
You
you'd
want to
like
read?
me to,
If
I
you got,
found
yeah, you got
I
something you
found
care to
the
share? Yeah, you've got a great voice, great reading voice. And
I have to edit a lot really when I do Adam's murder. So I
yeah,
edit all the audio, and it's funny because you don't know that your mouth makes a lot of noises or that your throat clicks until you start editing audio, and you're like, oh my
popping
god,
popping
what
your
they sound like.
peas. Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. Luckily, I have a pop filter or what is that? A windscreen.
Does that
Still
help?
doesn't. It helps a little bit, but not 100%. I probably should get a better mic.
I should invest in some new technology. I've got this one I've been using for a while, but
Yeah, that looks beefier than what I've got. I've got a
really
little
pretty cool, huh? I know, right?
Yeah.
Showing off my gear here.
Yeah. I actually just used my phone for today, but
Oh, really? Wow, looks
yeah.
fabulous. Yeah.
But
Yeah, go for it. What are you going to read?
so in rejects, I've got Uncle always said Auntie liked to eat. Would you like? It's a couple pages long. Would you like me to read the first page, whole
Yeah,
page?
give us a taste, whatever you think.
All right. I never understood why my Aunt Valerie didn't eat dinner with us. She prided herself on preparing the perfect dinner for Uncle Jack and their guests, but when it came time to eat, she always excused herself. I had assumed this was because she was always busy in the kitchen, and as I got older, I began to wonder if she had an eating disorder. I was probably 8 when I finally had the courage to ask my uncle during dinner, why doesn't Auntie like to eat? Jack had smiled, his lips spreading wide like curtains exposing his tobacco-stained teeth. Oh, hun, Auntie likes to eat. He had slurped up a big spoonful of soup real loud. I looked down at my plate, a finely prepared steak and sides that I watched her spend hours making. Well, why does she never eat with us? Your auntie is shy, dear. She thinks her eating habits are gross.
Love
After
it.
that, I had lost my appetite, opting to push around my food as I thought about what Auntie could do that was so gross. Every time I visited with them, I thought about that specific conversation, careful never to bring it up around Valerie. although I did begin to keep a close eye on her. She wasn't thin or pale like she never ate. Rather, she was muscular and full of life all the time. It bothered me that she felt embarrassed to eat in front of us, so I began stalking her, watching from behind furniture and around corners to see if I could catch her. What was so gross about her eating habits? I would catch Uncle Jack in the fridge or pantry almost hourly, but Valerie didn't even lick the spoon while making cake. Followed her almost everywhere, drawing the line at the bathroom door, until one day visions of her eating off the toilet rim or mixing soup in the bowl with a giant ladle swam through my mind, eating at me. I waited until she hopped up during a commercial break while watching TV. She closed the door, not locking it. Giving her a few seconds to do what she was going to do, I opened the door and pounced in. There she sat on the toilet, a scowl on her face. "Melissa, get out of here and shut the damn door." I was relieved to find out she wasn't a turd eater, but embarrassed that I had to go to such lengths. On the way back to the living room, I realized there was one other place I didn't follow Auntie, the basement. She frequented down there, bringing up baskets of clean laundry and the occasional bulk food item. For years, I had been told not to enter the basement because the stairs were dangerous. I was 8 years old with perfectly capable legs. How dangerous could the stairs be? The rest of that weekend, Valerie didn't go downstairs, and the following Monday, I got a stern talking to by my parents about personal space. All week, I thought about the basement. Did she eat cockroaches from under the water heater? The lint from the dryer? There was food down there, as I had seen her bring up bags of dried beans or rice, or even big cans of vegetables, but none of that was any good on its own. The day finally came, as unexpected as it was. Leaving my classroom on the next Friday, I spotted Aunt Valerie waiting for me in the parking lot. She grabbed my hand and led me to her car. "Why are you picking me up?" I asked as she loaded me into the back seat of her station wagon. "Your mom's hair appointment is taking longer than she thought." I spent the afternoon munching on crackers and working on fractions. In the evening, I watched Valerie cook and serve us dinner. Not once did she even sniff the food. I ate my dinner quickly, acting as if it were the best meatloaf I ever had. Holding my stomach, I asked Jack, "May I be excused?" He raised an eyebrow at me, looking at my empty plate. I squirmed in my chair, grimacing a little, and he caved. Yeah, I don't want to have to clean that up." I flew out of my chair, although taking the time to scoot it in politely, and scurried off to the bathroom. Out of sight, I shut the door loudly and crept to the basement door. All day I had been carrying a flashlight in my pocket just for this moment. If I was going to catch Auntie doing something, I would have to do it fast. I leaned my ear against the door listening. From within, I heard grunting and wet smacking, just like when Jack ate ribs. Carefully planting my hand on the doorknob, I raised the flashlight, keeping my thumb over the switch. In one sweep, I twisted the knob, opened the door, and clicked on the flashlight. The beam washed over the concrete steps that led far down into darkness. I swept the flashlight to the left, catching movement. A squeal rang out. At first, I thought of a pig, but it was so different from a pig. There Aunt Valerie stood, in the circle of light I had centered on her. Her eyes were dark and shiny, and as her mouth opened wider, I realized the squeal came from her. Blood ran down her chin as the squeal grew louder. I watched horrified as she dipped out of the light, running to the darkness. On a wooden table lay the body of a man, his stomach a pool of dark crimson. The body moved, and the man lifted his head to look at me. I recognized him as their mailman. He reached to me, moaning. I heard slapping, like someone running barefoot. Swinging the flashlight, I saw Valerie barreling up the stairs on all fours. She bared her bloody teeth in a fat grin, her eyes wide and entirely black. I screamed just as the door shut. Valerie slammed into the wooden door, and I looked up. My uncle glared down at me with disapproving eyes. He chastised me, shaking his head and saying, "I told you your auntie likes to eat." I never visited my aunt and uncle ever again.
Oh, God. Oh, it's fabulous. Oh, thank you for reading the whole thing. Yes.
I was like, I don't want to leave him hanging. I might as well read it all.
Right. No, thank you. I was going to beg you to continue.
Yeah. That one's in rejects, and
Yeah.
I think I had written it. The prompt was a creepypasta for publisher, and
Really?
that's what I came up with. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Thank
Those
you.
basements. I lived in Michigan for a while at my grandmother's house, and the basement was at once fun and amazing, and at the other end, a little creepy. So
I've actually never lived in a house with a basement. I've always wanted one. I love the
that
idea.
was a good one. It was, God, 80, 90 years old, and let alone. And then there's the attic, and I'm sure lots have been written about attics too. So, oh gosh, that was delightful. That was delightful. So what else do you have in the works? Any other current projects you want to talk about? Or
I want to start like a painting series. I'm not very good at painting. I'm just kind of getting more into it. But I'd like to do something. I bought a bunch of frames from Habitat for Humanity. I'd like to start framing them, maybe sell them, see what happens.
Good for you. Well, when you're ready, tell us, and we'll put together a gallery show. We got to get you out to, I don't know, have you ever been in our Burroughs Theater or gallery in Marysville? Or
no, I was invited, and then I got really nervous. I have really bad social anxiety, so I was like, I don't know.
Whenever you're comfortable, coming out, and we'd love to meet you in person and show you around. And then we've got the Sutter Theater Center for the Arts in Yuba City, right on Plymouth Street. So that's turning into a real place. In fact, at some point, if you'd like to do a book event, a reading or something, when you're ready, no pressure.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. Once I have copies of Adam's Murder, I'll have to reach out.
All right. Let's do a little kickoff. If you're comfortable doing that, it would just be a lot of fun. Again, we love to showcase you, and you're here, and you're moving on up and on your way, and we're just so impressed with your work and everything you've accomplished so far.
Thank you.
What else? Anything else you want to talk about in terms of your
anthology,
your work?
The poetry collection. I've got a sci-fi I need to work on. It's a trilogy. I've only got the first book done. It's just I put it aside because there's so much to it. There's politics. There's politics on another planet. There's religion on another planet. So
like all great science fiction, it really kind of reflects back on us, doesn't it?
Yeah, it involves what was it? There's just a lot in it, and I just feel like I needed time to think about it all to really, push it into a book. The politics and serial killers and cults, and it's just a lot.
Yeah.
So
I love it. So thoughtful. I mean, letting all those ideas kind of coalesce, right?
Yeah.
Do you? I don't know a lot about the writing process, the big scale novel writing process. I do a little article and some other things, but nothing major. What's your approach? Do you edit and re-edit, or do you? What's your process, generally speaking? I'm sure it's different every time, but
with self-publishing, in terms of editing, I kind of just go over it once, give it to somebody else, let them read it, and then take their criticism, edit it, then read it over again, and then if I'm happy with it, I just publish it, because I prefer to get something out there. People can, like with Amazon, the nice thing is if somebody's like, hey, I saw a typo, I can go back and fix it and then re-upload a manuscript.
Oh, interesting. Oh, really?
And I do my best, to get those out, but the nice thing is it's always available to fix.
Oh, I had no idea that was available. I mean, so they're not sitting on thousands of copies of your books.
No, it's print on demand.
It is. Okay, that's printing on demand. That's fascinating. So there's no cost.
Not to me, no. So
they sell a book and they make a couple bucks, you make a couple bucks, and life is good, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So if I list it for $13.99, I make $2 or $3 just because they take out printing cost.
Wow.
And then so I make a royalty of 60%, but then they take out the printing cost from that.
Okay.
So then, that's what it is.
I wasn't going to ask that level of detail, but thank you for sharing that business part of the
That's an important thing to know, because a lot of people don't understand what I do. They think I buy a bunch of copies from a printer and then list them on Amazon. It's not that complicated. I mean, I've self-published a book in a week because, you can do it in a night just if you have the files ready and everything.
I gather if we had a project, we need something written, we could come to you, because it sounds like you can produce on a deadline pretty consistently. So
yeah, I'll procrastinate all day, and then I'll stay with Adam's Murder. I wanted it done by a specific time.
Yeah. Wow.
And I ended up every night from 11 to 12, I would write 1,500 words because I would procrastinate all day. And I was like, I'm not gonna not do it. So
and I know what that is. That's 4 or 5 pages in my world, so that's a lot. I mean, to be able to put that out. Oh my gosh.
I can't do that all the time, not all year, but a month or two at a time. I've realized that if I stick to that schedule, I can get a book done very quickly. And that's because National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, they have a website, and in November, you write a whole novel.
Is that the
And
month? National Novel Writing Month is November? We got to remember. Okay.
Yeah. But you can go to nanowrimo.org, and they have charts and stuff. So you fill out like every day whatever your word count was. And it's a good tool because it keeps me in check, and I can see over time, I'll have a spike, and then I'll go like a week without writing, and then a spike, and then a week. And I'm like, you know what? It's a good tool for me to use because you can use it all year round. You don't have to wait until November. You can start projects and fill it out all year round, and it's been great to keep me in check and keep me writing.
Oh, it's amazing, Alyanna. I love hearing about your process. That's always intrigued me. Any artist that, the way you do what you do, and it's just fascinating. Hey, are you up for our 10 questions from our friend James Lipton, who used to run the Actors Studio? We don't always do this, but I think with you as a wordsmith and obviously a thoughtful young person, I think it would be fun to ask you the same 10 questions that James Lipton used to ask his guests on the Actors Studio show. So, all right, without further ado, here we go. So what's your favorite word?
My favorite word, I looked at these questions earlier, not going to lie, and I had to think about it. And I was like, you know what? I really like how cupboard sounds.
Cupboard.
It's really stupid, but I like how cupboard sounds.
I love it. What's your least favorite? No, it's all right. Go ahead.
Oh, it's not necessarily like my favorite word to use, but in terms of like how it sounds, I just like cupboard.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I can tell you honestly, that's the first time we've heard that answer. Good for you for being original. What's your least favorite word?
My least favorite word is necessary because I can't spell it on the first time ever. It's every time it's like I get that little red underline and I'm like, damn it. I know. Yeah.
That's great. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Usually, like in terms of creatively, a lot of times it's depression. I use depression. It's a horrible answer, but that it's a huge part of why I write is to express my emotion. And tragedy and trauma and stuff is great for writing horror. And if I'm sad, I have to write.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah. What turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Depression. It helps when I'm needing to express, but then again, if I fall too deep into it, I can't express, if that makes sense. There has to be a certain level, and if I fall too deep, if I fall too deep, then I'm like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to create, but yeah.
What's your favorite curse word?
I say fuck a lot. Yeah. I try not to do it in my writing too much. Like with Microsoft Word, if I put cuss words, it's like it underlines it and it'll say this word may be offensive to your reader, and it's like that's kind
of. I've never seen that. Oh, that's fun. I gotta try
that. Yeah, and fuck is definitely, I use that a lot.
All right. Well, you can use it in many forms: adjective, verb, noun. What sound or noise do you love?
Besides music, usually a fan. I like using a fan to sleep, or usually I have a fan on, but I shut it off just because I was worried it would make noise in the background. But yeah,
a little white noise. That's right.
Yeah, I can't fall asleep in complete silence. Have to have something.
Interesting. What sound or noise do you hate?
Not to call anyone out, but my neighbor, she likes to she likes to scream at her kids all day, and I'm like, man, I'm a writer. Yeah. I was trying to sit in the backyard. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna write and relax, and then she just and she just screams. I'm like, oh my god, she's
I hear you.
Yeah.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would love to do comedy. I love making videos online that are like stupid. Yeah. So I make not really TikToks. I don't do TikTok. I do like Instagram Reels. Yeah. Same diff. But I just love making people laugh. Every time I see somebody comment with a little laughing emoji, I'm like, I did my job.
Well, I know you're hesitant to go out sometimes, but about our local comedy programs that are happening? There are several around town now that's become kind of a regular thing. We've hosted some big ones in our theater, but then there's some of the local restaurants host comedy nights, free on a regular basis. So
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
if you ever want to be pointed in that direction, and you mentioned you've done some videos and what have you, and we've
Yeah.
got we're doing some film festivals locally here. So when you're ready,
They're
we'd
just
love to
stupid
get you.
little couple-second jokes. When
Yeah,
Instagram first released their Reels, their like TikTok option,
yeah,
I was doing Reels. I did one about I started Facebook dating a couple years ago. I went on I had a guy come over and hang out. We were just supposed to be friends and stuff, and he kept like flicking my ear, and I
yeah.
was like, "What is wrong with you?" So I flicked him back, and he got mad, and he grabbed my arm and bit me, like bit my arm, full bore. I had a bruise for 2 weeks, and I was like, I need to make a joke about this to go. So I made a video about it online, and I kind of just told the story with like a filter over my voice.
Yeah.
That video got like, I think, what was it? That one got over 500,000 views, and then
Really?
yeah, and it was just like so random. And then I did one about a nightmare I had where I was watching a woman skin herself alive, and that one got over 600,000 views. But then like Instagram kind of changed their algorithm, or maybe my content wasn't as good. But I stopped getting as many views, but I still get a couple thousand every now and then, And
Wow.
I really love making videos, and I just want to make
We
people laugh.
gotta talk. I don't know. There may be some other things we can do together.
Right.
All right. So you want to do comedy. So what profession would you not like to pursue?
Anything with math. There's a reason I work with words.
Yeah.
Like I was good at math in high school, but like
Yeah.
I haven't been in high school since I was 16, so it's all just gone.
Good for you. All right. And last, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
As an atheist, I'm sure I wouldn't arrive at the pearly gates, but I'd at least like him to say, if there is a heaven and I was allowed to stay, I would at least like him to say, hey, here's, your dogs that have passed.
Oh,
I'd like to see them again.
perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Alyanna. What a delight. This has just been so much fun. We would love to get you over to the Sutter Theater Center for the Arts in Yuba City for a reading or book signing. Whenever you're ready, just let us know. You know how to get a hold of us. As I've said, we love to support local authors and artists, and we've got some great ones. And it's just been amazing to get to know you and learn a little bit more about your work.
Yeah, I used to go to art shows all the time, like art galleries and stuff in Davis, especially, because I grew up in Woodland, so it was just right there.
Right
but
there.
I need to get back into it and get out of the house.
Yeah, well, and we're not just visual art. We do we support literary arts in many ways, as well as doing music events, theater events. We've got a number of theater productions coming up that we're producing. So lots going on. We try to keep the art and culture ecosystem going here in Yuba and Sutter counties, and there's lots of other great people that we work with that are part of the cultural aspects of where we live here. So. As always, we want to thank our support team, making the magic happen. Producer Abby Cecina, technical director Shante Arroyo. Till next time, that's it for this month's Artist Alchemy. Next month, we should be meeting finally. It's been delayed for some time, but meeting some of our friends from Enterprise Rancheria, also known as the Estamumeka Maidu tribe. You may already know about them. They're the ones that brought the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino to our community. So you'll be fascinated by their stories and emergence as a major economic powerhouse. Don't miss this conversation with these important local culture bearers. You can always go to YubaSutterArts.org for updates on all of our live and virtual programs. So until next time, thanks for watching.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, pleasure.